Okay, so here we go. Thanks everybody for coming. Good to see you here. Good to see you here. So I guess it's time to tell the story. We're 2 weeks away from Resurrection Day, and there's so much in here. I think it's time to tell the story. Next week we're going to have the it's the Palm Sunday message always, and so I think we're going to. It's too much to cover in one message, but we're going to get a little bit of a summary here. I guess I would call this, I don't know what to call the message, but you'll know when it's done. Either the greatest reality show ever, or Jesus pushes the envelope. Okay, those are my two titles, and it may be something else by it ends up. Who knows? So I was thinking when Heidi and I returned from Budapest after 3 years in 2003. We faced something called reverse culture shock. We had been out of our nation for 3 years, and we had not seen American media for 3 years, and we spent 3 years on everyday trains, buses, and trams, and now all of a sudden we have a car that takes us exactly wherever we want to go. We don't have to make connections, and so all of a sudden we have this culture shock, and that's a good part of it. But then there were other things. We got to see American media, and we noticed that there were famous people in America now that we had never heard of. We were watching TV, and these people are famous. I never heard of this person. I've been away for 3 years. You go away for 3 years, you come back. It's very strange, very strange. There were many famous people that we knew nothing about. And there's also this thing called reality TV that we had not seen. And I'm thinking, what in the world is this? A bunch of people, they live in a house, and they go in this, they're in this atmosphere where that they would never put themselves in if it wasn't for a reality TV show. And then they make friends, they make enemies, and you're watching, and you're supposed to get connected with certain people, and you're rooting for certain people. And it's like I said, this is reality. This is not even close to reality. And there was all these kind of a very strange getting used to American culture again, and it dawned on me that the world presents us with counterfeit reality on a constant basis. We get fed counterfeit reality all the time. Every TV show, and you watch politicians, and there's never an outpouring of the issues. It's always a confrontational thing, and let's see who talks better, and let's see who wins, and that's not reality. The reality is, let's discuss things to make things better and see what we can do. But no, there has to be a winner and a loser, and that's why nothing gets done. And it's just a counterfeit reality. And then I'm thinking about what we're going to celebrate in 2 weeks. This is the ultimate reality. Jesus came down, and he was incarnated 2,000 years ago, and he had it was pretty much a two-stage reality show. The first part was Christmas. He was a baby up until the time he's 2 when the Magi came, and then 10 years later, you cut to just about a week of his life when he goes to Jerusalem as a 12-year-old. And then that's stage 1. And then there's 18 years of absolute blank on Jesus' life. We know absolutely nothing about what happened to him. And then he's 30 years old, and he goes on a 3-year ministry. Now, does the world provide any inkling about what those 18 years are? Yes, they do. They shouldn't, because they know nothing about it. But I heard there's a television show that's going to come out that's going to supposedly, or a movie that's going to supposedly guess at what those fill-in years were about, as if they have any clue, and they don't. Please don't watch it when it comes out. And there's even something called the Gospel of Thomas, and we have no idea whether it's real or not, and we have no reason to believe it's real. And he has all these ideas about these magic tricks that Jesus did as a kid, and it's all in there, and it's never been verified or validated. So the world will put stuff out there, and it's like the smorgasbord, and if it hits, whatever sticks and what people will buy, that's good. Our commercial people will make money on it. But that's not reality, and it's not truth. And we get fed counterfeits all over the place. This book is not a counterfeit. This is where we should get our reality from. Jesus's age 30 to age 33, that was the greatest reality show on earth. That was it. That's the ultimate, and that's the truth. And whether people believe that or not determines their ultimate eternal destiny. It is the ultimate of importance. And I thought that right from the beginning, the big picture vantage point shows us the reason for the show. And the reason for the show is us. We are the reason for it. Right, the first sentence in the Bible, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The first word in the Bible is in Hebrew, Bereshit, and it translates into the prepositional phrase, in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, God did stuff. So whose beginning are they talking about? It wasn't his beginning. If you permit me just a horrible analogy, a figure of speech, God was a full-grown adult by the time in the beginning started. You know, horrible analogy. He always was and always will be. But he wasn't growing at that time. He wasn't a baby. He wasn't trying to figure things out. He had it all figured out. And the beginning was us. The beginning was he made a bunch of inanimate stuff, and then he made insects and animals, and then he made the crown of his creation. And if you read through the first books of Genesis, you find out everything he made was good until he got to people, humans, and that became very good. We are the crown of his creation. We're the ones that he's talking about. We're the ones that he loves. And I was thinking, I preach about a lot of different subjects, but this theme that goes through everything is you have value. You are not one of 7.4 billion people who's trying to scrape together a life. You are someone that not only can relate to God who is infinite, but God is intimate. He is intimate to you. He seeks to know you. He wants to have an intimate relationship with you. He, in the beginning, it's all about us. All about us. And so it's our beginning. And we sing the song that he loves us, and when he lived on the earth, it was all about the lost. He came to seek and save the lost. It was all about us. Now, he did a multiplicity of things that we can't even record, and it says so at the last very verse of the book of John, in John chapter 21, verse 25. John says, and there are also so many other things which Jesus did, that if they should be written down, every one, I suppose that even the world itself could not contain all the books that would be written. Amen. Amen means put faith on it. So be it. Put faith on it. And he was selling something that was true. And so there were so many things that Jesus did. He healed the lame, he healed the lepers, he fed 5,000 with a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread. He cast demons out of demonized people. He raised paralytics, and he did so many amazing things. He healed the blind. But these were all, if you will permit me this, these were all miracles that were like how we rate hurricanes and tornadoes. These were 1, 2, and 3 rated miracles. Miracles were way beyond all of us anyway. Even the number ones are great. But now it was coming towards the end of his 3-year ministry, and he needed to do something to push the envelope, to make everything happen. And so it was time for a level 5 miracle. It was time to go to that big, giant tornado that was going to take everything down and make everything happen. And so he was about to do it. He wanted to show us and the world who he was and who everybody was dealing with. He wanted to show his enemies, you got a real problem. And he wanted to show his faithful believers, you're in good hands. And so we go to John chapter 11. And now I'm not gonna read it. It's long. I'm gonna paraphrase it in non-King James English. Okay, we all speak that. I think we pretty much speak non-King James English. Don't get angry if I don't speak King James English. Okay. So Lazarus, the beloved brother of Mary and Martha, was sick unto death. So they sent for Jesus. Jesus loved all 3 of them, and he knew them intimately. And when Jesus heard it, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. And now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, but he waited 2 days before he went to meet them. Strange thing, you hear they need you and you're waiting around. And then Jesus said to his disciples, he said, Lazarus is asleep, so let's go and I will wake him out of his sleep. And his disciples said, hey, if he's asleep, then he's fine. You know, that's a good place to be, isn't it? And Jesus said plainly, no, Lazarus is dead. D-E-A-D, dead. And there's a reason why I delayed going to him, and the reason is to give you faith. And of course, they didn't quite understand this at the time. And then as he came, Martha met Jesus, and she said, if you had been here, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. And then Jesus said to her, your brother shall rise again. And then Martha said, yes, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And then Jesus, I just picture Jesus at this point, looking deep into Martha's eyes, because he wants her to understand this next sentence that resonates throughout the ages. And he says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. And he that believes on me, though he were dead, yet he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. And then he said, you get that? Do you believe this? And then she said, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God. And then her sister Mary came to Jesus and fell down at his feet, and she said the same thing Martha did. She said, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. You could have saved him. And then when Jesus saw her weeping along with the other Jews that came to her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? And they said unto him, Lord, just come and see. And then as they were going there, the shortest sentence in all of the Bible, John 11:35, Jesus wept. Now Jesus, believed in actions louder than words. He didn't need to say, I feel your pain, or anything like that. I was going to do a Bill Clinton impression here, but it's so inappropriate. I really feel your pain. All right. I had to do that. I'll feel your pain. I really feel your pain. All right. Forgive me for this. I can't help. I couldn't help myself. I said I wasn't going to do it, and I did it. No, Jesus wept. He wept. And then the other Jews said, behold how he loved him. And some others said, couldn't this man who opened the eyes of the blind have kept him from dying? Jesus came to the grave, and it was a cave, and a stone was laid upon it, and he said, take away the stone. And then Martha said to him, Lord, by this time he stinks. Because he's been dead for 4 days. Now, Jesus had already, prior to this, he had resurrected 2 people. He resurrected the widow's son from Nain, and he also resurrected Jairus' daughter. And these are in the scriptures. The widow's son from Nain is in Luke 7:11 through 15, and Jairus' daughter, Mark 5:22 to 43. But they had only been dead for a few hours. So everybody could think, well, that was just maybe sort of a revival. Maybe they weren't really dead. Maybe it was a swoon thing or something like that. But this was different. The first century Jews believed that to leave a corpse unburied after dark would desecrate the land. So, and even nowadays, Orthodox Jews, they bury their dead within a day. They do it fast. There's no waiting around, no wake stuff, anything like that in the ground before nightfall. Jewish tradition held that a person's spirit would hang around the body for 3 days. After that, the spirit would leave. Also, after that 3rd day, a corpse would start to decay, and the face would blacken and become unrecognizable. So maybe some would think that rather than raise people from the dead, Jesus had revised them, and maybe they weren't really dead. But 4 days, that's really dead. That's dead and gone. That's buried. That's dead and buried. So Jesus said unto her, didn't I tell you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? And then they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. And I know that you always hear me, but because of the bystanders who are looking on, I said it, so that they may believe that you have sent me. He was doing this for their benefit. This was all for their benefit so that they could see the glory of God and get it reflected on them and increase their faith. And then he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And he that was dead came forth, dressed in grave clothes from top to bottom. Must have looked like what we now consider the mummy. And Jesus said unto them, "Loose him and let him go." And then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. Jesus had just poured gasoline on the Pharisee fire. They were already wanted to get him so that they could, take him out or at least get him out of the picture. But this was beyond anything. This was way beyond anything. And then from John 11, verses 46 through 53, we see that Jesus had rocked their world out of control. And it reads like this: "But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council around, and they said, 'What are we to do? For this man performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation.' But one of them, who was Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said to them, 'You know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it's better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish.'" And then it says this thing that all the commentators disagree on and have problems with, and I don't know how much I'll make a stab at this. He says, "He did not say this of his own accord." And some commentators think this is something that God made him prophesy, because he was an evil man and he was a priest and people would listen to him, and many people thought the high priest had the automatic ability to prophesy. And a lot of commentators thought that God made him say this. Maybe he did, I don't know. Or that he was a prophet and he just said it. But being the high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. So from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. Stage 2 of the reality show was amazing, and it astonished, amazed, and surprised everyone except Jesus. He knew what was going down. He knew it from start to finish by this time. Matthew 26:2, Jesus said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days in the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is to be betrayed and to be crucified." So he told them plainly, this is going to happen to me. And they were like, huh? And then later in Matthew 26, verses 31 through 35, then Jesus says unto them, this is the famous confrontation with Peter and the disciples, and he says unto them, "All of you are going to be offended of me because of this night. For it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. But after I am risen again, I will go before you into Galilee." And then Peter answered and said unto him, "Though all men shall be offended because of you, yet will I never be offended." Be careful what you say in your emotions. You may come to regret that. Yeah, I'm going to go to the playground and beat up the big bully. Be careful. Think about it before you say that. Jesus said unto him, "Truly I say unto you that this night before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. And Peter said unto him, "Though I should die with you, yet I will not deny you." Likewise, all the disciples said the same thing. And when the crucifixion happened, John was the only one that showed. All the rest of them were fearing for their lives, and they weren't. They booked. They took the last train for the coast. So the power of foreknowledge kind of overrules pre-game emotions. You know what I mean? Jesus was not about to be surprised. He had a divinely accurate expectation of the agony and the ecstasy that he was about to go through. And he didn't need to share any of this with his disciples, but he knew that after the seemingly tragic events of what was about to take place in the next few days, that his prophetic utterances were going be remembered and cement the faith of his disciples. Every word had a purpose. How did Jesus know this stuff? How did he know what was going to happen, what was going to come down? Perhaps the Father revealed it to him. Perhaps it was decided in the predeterminate counsels of the Trinity, that it was predetermined that as he grew into a man, it would be revealed to him. Or perhaps he could just read the writing on the wall because he knew men's hearts. Any one of these is a possibility. But know this, and this is important. God did not make these events happen by creating evil people to play the bad guys and pulling their strings against their will. He does not do that. He just set forth, he just pushed the envelope with this, put it in motion, and then men's hearts did what they do. He didn't force anybody to do any of this. And, all right, this is important. Proverbs chapter 16, verses 2 through 5. Proverbs chapter 16, verses 2 through 5. This is going to put to bed a lot of this idea of election, that God chooses who will be saved and who will not be saved. And he chooses people to go to hell and chooses people to go to heaven. That is totally not true. Totally not true. But this verse is going to seem like it comes into contradiction to that, but this is why we study the Bible. Proverbs 16, verse 2. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Here goes. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured he will not go unpunished. Okay. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Sounds like God makes bad guys for when he wants them to be bad. And they have no control. Not the case. The answer to the dilemma is found in the Hebrew word translated as everything for its purpose, or all things for himself in some translations, or everything for his own. None of these captures the meaning of the Hebrew word ma'aneh, M-A'-N-E-H. The literal translation of ma'aneh is to give an answer or a response to. So the phrase all things for himself should be read all things to give an answer or a response to himself. In other words, everyone is responsible or accountable for what they do and will be called into account for what they do, even the wicked in their day of distress. That's what's being said here. This is an inaccurate translation. Okay? That's why we study the Bible. That's why we pull these words out. It's called exegeting words. This was the ultimate reality show. The actors on the stage were all real. God was not a divine puppeteer pulling the strings of the people to force them to act in a certain way. Jesus may have pushed the envelope, but he never forced anyone's response. There was no preordained script. All of the people involved in this were 100% human, and they had their own will. That's part of the soul. That's why God gave us a will. And that's why we're accountable. We can do things or we can choose not to. Even the main character, Jesus, was 100% human, while at the same time being 100% divine. And in Bible school, they have a term for that. They call it the hypostatic union, where Jesus Christ is one person, fully God and fully man. Jesus had two natures. He had a human nature and he had a divine nature. And they're inseparable, but they're not mixed. They're not mixed. Therein lies the difference. Jesus will forever be God-man, fully God and fully human, two distinct natures in one person. His humanity and divinity are not mixed, but are united without the loss of a separate identity, meaning he had one personality. And Jesus sometimes operated within the limitations of his humanity. He got tired. He got thirsty, and at other times he operated in the power of his deity. He resurrected Lazarus. And he multiplied a couple of fish and some loaves of bread so that 5,000 people could be fed. And in both, Jesus' actions were from his one person. Okay. He had two natures, one personality. He knew which nature to use at what time. And of course, you can speculate, well, did he know who he was when he was 12 years old in the temple? Did he know that he was actually who he was? We don't know that. When we get there, we'll ask him, maybe, find out. I told my wife the other day, when I get to heaven, I'm going to seek him out, of course. And of course, I'm going to want to sit down with C.S. Lewis and have a talk. Because a lot of stuff I learned was from him. But he became human. Jesus became 100% human in addition to his divinity. Why? For us. He did it for us because he valued us, and it was necessary for him to do that. So for his contemporary believers, he issued some words of preparation just in advance of this stage 2 climax, because it was going to get crazy. As you can imagine, if you were a disciple of Jesus and you saw what he went through and you saw the crucifixion and you're trying to make sense out of all this, person that you believed was the Son of God, and all of a sudden what's going on, and then what, whoa. He issued some words of preparation. In John chapter 16, verses 16 through 22. Jesus issues a cryptic goodbye, and he predicts sorrow and joy for the faithful. And he knows that that they're going to face what is an emotional roller coaster ride. And he says, in a little while, you shall not see me. And again, in a little while, you shall see me, because I go to the Father. And then, of course, they got real confused. And some of his disciples said among themselves, what is this that he's saying unto us? A little while, and you shall not see me, and again, a little while, and you shall see me, and because I go to the Father. And they said, therefore, what is it that he's saying, a little while? We cannot understand what he's saying. And Jesus knew that they were desirous to ask him about this, and he said unto them, do you inquire among yourselves of that I said, a little while, and you shall not see me, and again a little while, and you shall see me? He said, truly I say unto you, you're going to weep and lament, but the world will rejoice, and you shall be sorrowful, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy. A woman, when she is in travail, has sorrow, because her hour is come. But as soon as she is delivered of the child, she remembers no more the anguish for joy that a man is born into the world. And you, now listen to this, and you now in the present, therefore have sorrow. But I will in the future see you again, and your heart shall in the future rejoice. And your joy no man takes from you. Your joy no man takes. Present, indicative, active. Your joy, no man can take it from you now. In the midst of your sorrow, you will have a place to go. There is something for you. It is powerful. He said, we don't go through life having happy moments 100% of the time. We have sorrow. We all have sorrow. Some of us are going through sorrow now, and some of us are about to in the future, and some of us have gone through in the past. But we can have that power, we can have that assurance that God is with us, that we can have that joy, which is assurance that we're going to be all right, that God has something for us that is ultimately wonderful. Psalm 30, verse 5b says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. We will always have a good outcome. We will always have a good end. He is for us, not against us. And we are not one of 7.4 billion people that are being ignored by the person who created us. We may be ignored by most of those 7 billion people, but we're not being ignored by the one who created us. He has time to be not only infinite, but intimate with us, and he wants that for us. So I heard it said, my wife sent me a little blurb in an email. She said, Winston Churchill said this, and if you find yourself going through hell, keep going. In other words, there's no reason to stop. You don't want to stop there in fellowship, or or have a cup of have devil's coffee or whatever it is. You want to keep going. If you find yourself going through hell, keep going. Try to find the door. And I looked it up, and it said that they don't think that Churchill said this, but it sounds like something he said, so they gave him credit for it. So I don't know. Somebody said it. A great Bible paradox is what always seems to happen is that the best always seems to emanate from the worst. Why is that? It's because God has a journey for us. And though we go through some dark places, the darkness will only be temporary. And that's because He'll never leave us, and He's prepared a glorious destiny for us. Let's finish with this. John chapter 14. John chapter 14. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. He has a place for us. He has a protection for us. He has a cover for us. He has salvation for us. He has an eternity for us. He has joy for us. It's ours. And no man can take it from us. Now, we can allow men to take it from us. We can hear the epithets or the curses or the discouraging words coming at us, but that's just the world throwing counterfeit blather at us. God has nothing but love and encouragement for you. Nothing but that. He is for us from beginning to end. He is for us. And that's what this resurrection is all about. I guess the great thing about Resurrection Day is He not only loves us and is for us, but He shows us that He can do it. He's got the chops. Nobody has the chops. I've said this before. If you want to apply for the job of God, your prerequisite, don't even go through the door. If you can't take a dead person and make them live again, don't even bother to apply. That's question number one. Don't waste my time. And there's only one person who's got the prerequisite. There's only one. And that's the God who loves us. Let's pray. Lord, we just thank you for your peace and your joy and your love. And we can begin to hand out the communion, I think. Lord, we ask for your grace, and let your love just resonate in our hearts. Let the value that you place on us be personal, so that we can understand that we are special in the eyes of our Creator. And give us the wisdom to not let the world tell us who we are, but to let you tell us who we are, because you're the one who has the purpose for us and the plan, and you're the one who has the ultimate and the true and the hearted love for us. And we just praise you and love you, Lord, and we thank you. And if anyone who's listening to this on the internet or here or wherever comes in communication with this message, we ask that if you want to give your heart to Jesus, if you want to be a believer, if you want to be one of those who truly is intimate with Jesus Christ, you can do that right now in the quietness of your heart. Just validate these words silently in your heart. Say, Jesus, I know you went to the cross and died for my sins. And I know your shed blood covers all of my sins, and I know that you have not only the power to resurrect my heart, soul, emotions, body, everything, spirit. I know you love me, and I want to be in the family of God. I want to be a child of the Father, and just receive me into your love. And if you've prayed that prayer, I would just ask you to come here to Pizza Supreme and ask to speak to one of the guys or gals, and let them know that you've received Christ. Or you can call me, Pastor Lance, at 428-3907, and I would ask that you just share that with me. And we want to give you a Bible and get you started on your Christian walk, and we want to bless you. Lord, just bless these folks, and now we'll do the communion.